Okay, I have thought about trying to post this a few times, and I just I'll get my thoughts all jumbled up in my head, and I lose track. So I figured this might be an easier way to ask the questions that I have. Okay, so ultimately, I'm going to take up the floor, take out the foam, redo the stringers and all that. But it was suggested that maybe I start dealing with the transom issue. And what I want to do is I want to go to a full transom, but I gotta fix what was done the first time. Um, I don't know if I have. I should have had a transom picture in here, but the question was already. Well, the pictures of the transom are already in the thread, but the questions I have really don't have to do with the transom specifically. It has to do with when I take the cap off. I understand that, I take the screws out of the rub rail, and there's some adhesive that I can see that's up under where the rug rail, where the cap and the hull meet that was covered by the rub rail. So if I get all that stuff off, I understand that the outside of the cap is no longer going to be attached. But this here, this false wall is all connected to the cap, for lack of a better word. So I know that when I go to cut the floor away, I'm going to cut along this seam to be able to take the floor up. So basically, I'm going to have the cap connected to this wall, and I guess I would cut around here, around the outside of the splash well, to separate the floor from the sides of the splash well so that I could replace the floor. But when I go back to putting it together and I have this floor all the way across the bottom of the boat, am I gonna basically fiberglass the side of this false wall back to the floor? That makes sense, but what I'm trying to figure out is once I get the the cap freed up on the outside, how do I how do I get the cap off? Do I cut up here to take the cap off and cut into the sidewall, or because this thing is way too big to keep the cap and the sidewalls and all this intact to lift off. If that's the way to do it, then I guess that's the way you got to do it. But basically, my question, without rambling, is when I take the cap off and I need to take, how do I get this stuff off? I can cut it in pieces, long strips, but when I go to put it back in the boat and I glass all this stuff back together, I'd only be glassing the front side. Is that okay? Because when I go to put this back together, the back side of this, even though I glass over this here to make it, seamless and waterproof or whatever, where they come together on the back side is still going to be a split. Unless I'm missing something. Uh, yeah, so like up here, I have the cap freed. Let's say I have the cap freed up on the outside, and I go and I cut along here to get the floor out. When I go to put this back in and I'm glassing this area right here, it's only going to be glassed on the top side. Like, that has me a little puzzled because the back side's not going to be, unless I'm like I said, unless I'm missing something. How do I ensure that this is strong and waterproof? I know the front side's going to be waterproof and whatnot, but is glassing just the front side of this false wall to the floor enough and structurally sound, for the boat to be fine? Am I worrying about too much about not being able to glass the backside of this thing, and how do I get this, off of the cap, or do I leave it attached to the cap? Because that's going to be one huge piece to come off of here in order to be able to access the floor and all that stuff. So that I'm a little puzzled with. Like, does all this stay attached to the cap when you lift it off? That's going to be a weird kind of a move, and I don't want to damage the cap. So any suggestions and information on that, I appreciate it. I've been scouring the net looking for pictures, and I see that typically I see people removing the cap and they have like a different setup. It's like it you have the top, this rail here, and then it comes down to about right here, and then it's opened up to the actual, if you look up under, it's the actual hull that goes to the floor. But this false wall kind of changes the game a little bit for me as far as how I'm thinking. So I just don't know how to keep, what to do with that. Should I be cutting a seam along here, and then when I put it all together, kind of glass these pieces together, sand it, and then just gel coat the whole thing, and that'll kind of cover it up and give it not only the fiberglass and the matte and the resin, but also the gel coat that'll protect that. So basically, do I cut this false wall away from the cap is what I want to know. All right, and I think that's pretty much all the questions. So I know the cap comes here, and I'm gonna go to the full transom. So I know I'll be cutting basically here to cut this transom and try to get everything back to this back skin. And I'm going to use a board back here like someone suggested, and to basically build the transom up to here with one solid sheet, just like the boat that I picked up from schools. If the right way to do this is to go ahead and cut these false walls or whatever, then I can pretty much figure out how to do the splash well and stuff as far as cutting and putting stuff back together. But it seems like I would cut here around the outside of this, basically removing the floor, the cap, the false walls, and the splash well in different pieces. If I'm on the right track, let me know. I'm not gonna be cutting today or anything like that. I'm just trying to wrap my head around this job, and I will be probably cutting some of the floor and taking a look at the stringers and whatnot. Although I already know I'm replacing those because the foam up in the gas tank, the fuel tank area is waterlogged and nasty. So it's all gonna come up, and I'm gonna try to get this thing back in the best shape that I can because I want it to last for a long time. It's a good looking boat, just needs a little work. But any suggestions, I appreciate it. Thanks.